I can get, and to make sure that as I said, they usually give me some written disclosure, which I will read through to you now.
Okay.
And then I will try and focus on the actual allegations. And I've looked through your prepared statement, but I'm not actually going to deal with any of the issues in relation to the complaints against the police, because that's a separate issue. Because we're here today regarding the allegations made by Jack Connell of harassment, effectively. It's harassment of him. And he's given me a statement to the background. So anything we discuss is confidential here. Now, normally I would just see you on your own, but obviously because your father's a carer and he's and one of the issues, the reason that they're concerned you may be a witness is because they don't know in relation to putting some of the devices in, or whether the CCTV was you or was it Michael. They don't know.
I know, and I can tell them.
But because you're living in the same property, so that they don't know. They potentially don't know who's done what, which is why they are concerned that.
So is the moment Michael says he placed all the devices and he did all the postings, from that moment on, am I no longer a witness?
That will be a decision made by the senior officer. When PC Young, just the other thing I just need to say to you is, I spoke to PC Young about the fact that I'm aware of complaints made against him, and he did request that someone else. He did request his team that someone else deal with this interview, but they said he should carry on for it now. So it's not his choice.
Right.
Michael, you may be cynical, but I'm a professional, and I spoke to him as a professional. So if he's misleading me, then that obviously becomes an issue. But it is something I addressed with him, and because it was important for you, and it's important for the proper conduct of this interview. Because if I feel obviously that there's an issue with the fact that you feel that he's biased against you, then there is an issue. But that's why I spoke to him one-to-one. I said, listen, you're aware of these complaints, and yes, he has. But there will be a meeting later on in the week, and what will probably happen is that someone else will be assigned, because at the moment which is unusual, he's hearing from both you and from Jack Connell, so it's not an ideal situation. But safer neighbourhood teams are not the same as other criminal investigations, because they're trying to find a middle ground, because neighbours do, not invariably, but very, very often there are issues. It's some of the hardest work that we have to do.
So PC Young's immediate superior is Sergeant Yu, who always ducks responsibility and sends it back. So it's not surprising that he was the last person who would want to be doing this, because he knows what would happen.
So let me go through. This is the pre-interview briefing. This is the information. I've added a few notes here, just for my purposes, because I tend to find it's easier to write on the paper.
That's what he does. That's what he does.
Well, it's just
writing the margins.
Writing the margins underneath, because it's relevant. So, Mr. and Mrs. Connell purchased the property of 56 Cherrywood Lane in January 2021. The house is terraced and is attached to neighbours Michael Hart and his father. The house was originally in a state of disrepair, and the Connells began work on the house. The work lasted for some time, and this may have caused some disturbance to the neighbours, including yourselves. Now, when he said he's directing this disclosure to you, Michael, not to the solicitor. So he refers to you. During February 2021, Mr. Hart made complaints of noise to Merton Council Environmental Health Officers. Mr. Hart then became concerned regarding comments posted on social media platform Nextdoor, a digital platform similar to him, a social media to which you were. I have to refer to you as Michael, because it's easier rather than me always putting Michael Hart. To which you were then lead administrator, and you made a complaint to Nextdoor themselves. Mr. Jack Connell also made a complaint to social media of Nextdoor following comments posted believed to have been made by yourself giving a negative review of Mr. Connell's building company. Then I clarified that the building company that Jack Connell owns is the company the company he also used to do the building work. Work on the house took some time and was being conducted during COVID pandemic. At this time, your mother was quite ill and bedbound. In March of 2021, Mr. Michael Hart made 3 further complaints to Merton Council environmental health officers, and due to the noise disruption of these extensive mills, you, Michael Hart, moved in. He says your brother's address. Was it your brother's or was it a friend?
It's a false statement, but initially his brother and then another friend.
Okay.
So, right, I'm just confused here. Whose statement are you reading?
I'm not reading anybody's statement. I'm reading the disclosure of the allegations.
Okay, so
it's a summary.
Right,
These are Jack's words.
So, right, this is what Jack wrote.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
No, it's not what Jack wrote. No, this is not what Jack wrote.
Who wrote this?
This is the police officer.
Okay, right.
Who's done a summary of the allegations against you.
Right, this is that makes more sense of the obvious omissions. So, okay, fine.
I mean, and it's so this is the officer's summary of the allegations. They never provide us with, well, very rarely do they provide us of the actual statements from anybody. That is, what they do is they receive statements, they receive information, and they summarise it into a document called disclosure.
Just as an example of why we're immediately worried about it, the reason he went to the country, as in his declared statement, is because of the non-epidemic seizure he had, which was so serious.
Yeah.
And that seizure was brought on by the police themselves.
Right.
And it was because of the seizure that medical people said he'd go away, not the noise.
Not the noise. Okay. Well, I think it's.
And the police know that, and I mean that's why we're so irritated by the way they treated him the other day.
Okay. So it was as a result of the seizure.
Yeah. I mean, you've already, from what you've read already, there's already 5 things I'd like to pick apart on that. But
well, a seizure. As a result of the seizure caused by police behaviour. Okay. Just made a note of that. I'll put that in brackets.
The police officer who was dealing with at the time was a PC Trove, and they upheld the complaint against him.
And then they didn't, and then they handed it to the IPCI, and then the IPCI handed it back to Southwest Command.
Okay.
And that's still in progress.
So anyway, that was his understanding. That's his summary. It says, away from the address for a period of about 2 months. Sadly, Mrs. Hart passed away. This coincided with Mr. and Mrs. Connell moving into the address of 56 Cherrywood Lane. This seems to be the catalyst and start of this dispute and the repeated actions by yourself that form an offence of stalking.
Well,
stalking is a form of harassment.
Well, that itself isn't true. That's a gross simplification of what happened and doesn't actually fit the timeline. Neither does that comment about me posting a negative review on Nextdoor. That never happened.
That never happened?
Yeah, there's never a negative review about his company on Nextdoor posted by me.
I'll just make a note of that separately.
There was a negative review posted by me on Google Places. But that was at a time before we knew who Jack Connell was, and at the time we just believed him to be a incompetent carbon-light builder.
Okay,
so there's no relationship whatsoever at that point.
So there was a so you said there was a review.
Yeah. So
on Google Places.
So the summary is, Jack just turned up one day. At that time, we did not know who he was. The very first thing he did was fill a skip, which was placed in the driveway adjacent to ours, full of flammable material, and then set light to it and walked away.
Okay, so that when was that?
January.
January when?
21.
So January 21. Skip outside his property.
Wait, no, again, that's the wrong statement. It was never his property at that point, and it did not become his property until August.
Look,
I mean, he wouldn't have been.
May, but the point is, it was bought by his father-in-law. Father-in-law we knew, we'd never met Jack before, and so we didn't know who he was. All we knew he was did something which another local builder actually was a friend of his father-in-law, came down and gave